Hello and welcome to Pabbly Connect. So this video is going to be a complete guide on how to integrate apps using header-based authentication inside Pabbly Connect. And to do so guys, we just require two basic things. First one is the API doc of the application which you want to integrate. And the second thing is a Pabbly Connect account. So let's begin. So as you can see, here we are on the front-end dashboard of Pabbly Connect. Now to access the developers platform of Pabbly Connect, we just have to go to the URL section and after connect.pabbly.com, we just have to enter /app. And now we have reached to app integration page of Pabbly Connect. Now here guys, you can start integrating your application. And to begin with, just click on this create new app button and give your application a name which you are integrating. And after that, just click on save. So right now in this video guys, we are going to take an example of Sendinblue, that how we have integrated Sendinblue inside Pabbly Connect. So Sendinblue is a popular email marketing application and it also uses header-based authentication. So let's see, here is the application which we have integrated named as Sendinblue clone. Let's have a look on them first. So while creating or integrating your application, the first thing which you have to do is to enter some basic details of the application, like the name of the application, the description of the application, and the logo. So the logo should be 64 x 64 inch pixel. Then after that, you have to select the auth type. So what kind of authentication your application uses. To know this, you can refer to the API doc of your application. So in this video, we are taking an example of headers. So Sendinblue uses headers as an authentication method. So that's why we have selected headers. And after that guys, here you can see there is a field of adding some help text. So in this help text field, in this section, you can actually enter the complete instruction that how a user using your application inside Pabbly Connect can access the API key or API token, which is required for the authentication using this headers method. So you can give the complete instruction over here. Likewise, we have given for Sendinblue. So by following these instructions, the user can actually get the API key of their Sendinblue account. And after entering these basic details, just click on save. So in this way, the step 1 of integrating your application inside Pabbly Connect is completed. We have successfully entered some basic details over here. Now let's move to step 2 and start creating some triggers. So from the left side, just click on this triggers section. And here guys, by clicking on this create trigger button, you can create new triggers. So you just have to name your trigger event, give your trigger event a name and click on save. So right now guys, I have already created some trigger events for Sendinblue. And we are going to have a look on the trigger event named as contact deleted. So using this trigger event, whenever a new contact is deleted in my Sendinblue account, I receive the details of the deleted contact inside Pabbly Connect. And to start creating new trigger, the first thing which you have to do is to enter some basic details of the trigger. Like what is the name of the trigger event, what is the trigger event description, what does this trigger event do. Then you have an option to add video tutorial URL. So guys, if you have a video tutorial on how this trigger event works, you can also add the URL of that video tutorial over here. Then it is asking us trigger type. And this is quite important. So here in Pabbly Connect, it offers 3 different types of trigger. First one is webhook setup by instructions. So in this trigger type, guys, Pabbly Connect gives a webhook URL to us and we just have to copy that webhook URL from Pabbly Connect and add it to our Sendinblue account or the account of your application which you are integrating. So if you allow your users to manually add the webhook URL on your dashboard, you can use this trigger type. Now, the second type of trigger is webhook setup by API request. So if you don't allow your users to directly add the webhook URL, but you support webhook and it requires an API request, a API call to enter the webhook URL into your application, you can select this kind of trigger. And the third kind of trigger is polling to check new data. So if you don't support webhooks, then guys, you can select this kind of trigger. You can set up a polling based trigger, and in polling based trigger, at a regular interval of time, Pabbly Connect will pull some data from your application inside the workflow. So Sendinblue do support webhook setup by instruction. That's why I have selected this as trigger type. Now the next thing it asks us is the trigger response type. So we have to select a default response and we will be selecting simple response over here. We don't want to receive the data from Sendinblue inside Pabbly Connect in an advanced format. Now it is asking us trigger setup instructions. So here guys, we have selected trigger type as webhook setup by instruction. Now guys, here we have to enter the complete instruction that how a user can copy the webhook URL from Pabbly Connect and what are the instructions, what is the step-by-step process of adding that webhook URL into your application. So just enter those complete instructions over here. After that, you also have an option to enter some kind of important help text which you want to give to your users. So this is an optional field. If you don't have any kind of important help text to give, you can just ignore it. And then just click on save. So in this way guys, we have successfully created a trigger and you can follow the same process to create multiple triggers as well. Now after creating this trigger event, let's check this trigger event once in the front end. So we will go to the front end dashboard of Pabbly Connect. And here we will create a workflow. For example, the name of the workflow should be demo. Okay, so here in this workflow in this trigger window, let's select our application. So the application on which we were working on was Sendinblue clone. So let's search for Sendinblue clone. Let's select this application. And after that, in trigger event from the drop down, let's select this trigger event of contact delete date. And yes guys, here you can see that as we select this trigger event, Pabbly Connect gave us a webhook URL. Now we can connect our Sendinblue account with Pabbly Connect using this webhook URL. And it has given us this webhook URL because we have selected this trigger type as webhook setup by instruction. So here you can see that below webhook URL, you can see a complete instruction that how we can paste this webhook URL into our Sendinblue account. The same instruction which we have entered over here while creating this trigger. So in this way guys, we have successfully created this trigger. Now let's move to next step and start creating some actions. So for that, from the left side, we will go to actions window. And after that, just follow the same process. The basic process is the same. Just click on this create new action button, give your action event a name and click on save. After that, we have to enter some basic details of this action event as well, like the description that what does this action event do and video tutorial URL. So in this video guys, we have this action event on which we are having a look right now is named as add existing contact to a list. So using this action event guys, I actually add one of my Sendinblue contact into a particular list. Now guys, we have entered the name, description and video tutorial URL as well. Then if you want to enter some important help text, as you all know, you can enter it over here and click on save. So we are done with the basic details of the action event. Now let's scroll down and after that here you can see I have added to another step named as inbuilt action details. So what are these inbuilt actions? We will have a look on these in a couple of minutes in this video, but first let's scroll down and come to this action event API configuration. So at this step guys, we actually configure that what does this action event do. So first what we have to do, we have to select the HTTP method. So in the drop down below, we can see all of the 5 methods. You have to select the HTTP method of your choice. Then we have the API endpoint URL. So here you have to enter the API endpoint which is required to perform this action. So we have referred to the Sendinblue API doc and we found that this is the API endpoint using which I can add one of my Sendinblue contact into a particular list. So that's why we have entered this endpoint URL. Then it is asking us request body type. So select the desired request body type from the drop down below and then wrap in array. That do you want to wrap this API call in array or not? So we don't want to. That's why we have selected no. Then guys, we are working on HTTP headers based authentication. That's why we have selected HTTP headers over here. And then we have entered the header label. So this is the header label guys. This is the parameter label. And after that, by clicking on this settings button in front of it, you can actually configure this header. So what will be the name of the header? The label name, that is API key. So whatever label name you will be giving to this header over here, the same label name will be reflected in the front end. And then you have to enter the help text that what the user has to do over here. So we have added the help text that enter your API key. So this is the label name and this is the help text. And then just click on save. Now, if you want to add multiple headers, just click on this add new header button and you can keep on adding multiple headers over here as well. Then after headers, it asks us set body, query or path parameter. So guys, to make this API call to using this API endpoint to add one of my Sendinblue contact into a list, what we have to do, first we have to give the list ID. As you can see over here in the API endpoint, we have to mention the list ID that in which list we want to add that contact. And then we also have to mention the contact as well. We have to mention the email address of the contact, that to which contact we want to move to that list. Now to perform this action or to make this thing guys, to perform this API endpoint call, what we need a complete data of all the list, all the contact lists present in my Sendinblue account. And also we need a complete data of all the contacts in my Sendinblue account. So after getting that data, we can actually ask the user in the front end to select that in which list they want to add the contact and what is the email address or to which contact they want to add to the particular list. Now for that, we need to get the complete data of all the lists and all the contact. And to do so in the backend guys, we have created these kind of inbuilt actions. So in this action event guys, we have added two inbuilt actions. First one is get list and second one is of inbuilt action of get contacts. So using these two inbuilt actions, we fetch the complete data of all the list and all the contacts from the Sendinblue account of the user. And then we show this data to the user in the front end in the dropdown or in a field. Now guys, how you can create these inbuilt actions? For that, scroll up and go to this inbuilt action section. And here guys, you can see that by clicking on this create new inbuilt action, you can start creating your inbuilt actions of your choice. And on the left side, you can see there are several inbuilt actions which I have already created. So let's have a look on this inbuilt action named as get list. Let's click on it. So guys, the basic process over here is the same. First, we have to select the inbuilt action type, and in the drop down below, we can see three different types of inbuilt action. So first one is a drop down and a custom field. Second one is a multi-step action, and third one is app auth validator. So you have to select your inbuilt action of your choice according to the API endpoint or the data which you are getting. Then after that, just give this inbuilt action a name and description and click on save. Then it comes the important part, the API configuration of the inbuilt action event. So you must be using some kind of API endpoint or making some kind of API call to get this data. So you have to select the HTTP method for this call and you have to enter the API endpoint. So whatever endpoint you are using according to your use case or according to your data you want to get, you have to enter the endpoint over here. Then it is asking us authentication. So we are using header based authentication. So in the drop down below, we can't see header based authentication over here. Just select no auth and then here in HTTP header, just select it and enter the authentication details over here as well. Now guys, while integrating an application inside Pabbly Connect or building some kind of triggers, actions or inbuilt actions, it is very necessary to connect your own account of your application, for example, Sendinblue inside Pabbly Connect. So here in this HTTP header section, you can see that while creating this inbuilt action, I have entered the API key of my own Sendinblue account. It is very important. And it is just important for creating this integration as well, just till the integration of your app inside Pabbly Connect. In real time, guys, whatever API key the user is going to enter while selecting this application and connecting their account of your application inside Pabbly Connect, this HTTP header or this API key or this authentication details will be replaced by that user's details in the runtime. So you don't have to worry about connecting your account while integrating your application. In the runtime, guys, it will be replaced with the connection details of the front-end user, like the header API header key and the actual value of the or API token value over here. So in this way, guys, you can set up this inbuilt action event or configure this inbuilt action event over here. And then after setting up, after entering all of these details, if it requires to send some kind of paths, parameters or fields, you can select it and start sending some kind of parameter fields as well with this API call. If it doesn't require it, let's ignore it. Also, if you want to enter some kind of raw JSON body, just select this and enter the raw JSON body over here. If not, let's ignore it. So particularly this endpoint URL does not require anything. So we have just entered these basic details and API key and then just click on send test request. And after clicking on send test request, you can see that here we have received a response. So this is the response of a list ID from Sendinblue in Pabbly Connect. So configuring this inbuilt action event is very important, guys, and it is very important to connect it and get this response over here because we have to use this response while building the action event over there as well. So in this way, we have created some inbuilt action over here. Now let's have a look on another inbuilt action of gets contacts. So we have entered some basic details And to get the contacts, we have followed the same process. We have entered the API endpoint using which we can get a list of all the contacts from Sendinblue. We have entered the HTTP headers and no paths or parameters or body fields were required. So we have just ignored it, click on save and send test request. And here in response, you can see that we have received the response of a contact over here. Now guys, after configuring both of these inbuilt actions and getting these responses, let's get back to our action event which we were creating. Let's get back to actions. And then here we have after creating those inbuilt action, here in this action event, we have added those inbuilt action. And this inbuilt action won't be shown to the user in the front end. In the back end, whenever a user will select this action event of add existing contact to a list, automatically when they will be selecting this action event and making the connection between Pabbly Connect and their Sendinblue account, automatically in the backend, we will fetch the complete data of all the list and the complete data of all the contacts from the Sendinblue account. Now, after getting this data, we also have to show this data to the users in the front end so that they can select that which list and to which contact they want to add in. So that is why we have created these fields, these path parameters over here. Just select it and we have given this path parameters the name as list ID and email. Then after that, by clicking on this add new parameter button, you can keep on adding multiple parameters over here. So whatever parameter you create over here, they are reflected as fields in the front end. So let's have a look on this first parameter, that is of list ID. Now to configure this parameter, guys, just click on this settings button in front of it and then here you can configure it. The first thing which we have to enter is the label name, that what will be the name of this field shown in the front end. So list ID is the label name. Then here we can see we have two different drop downs which are optional. First one is a dynamic drop down and second one is a static drop down. So the field which we are creating, the parameter which we are creating is a dynamic drop down. Then it is asking us option label and option value. So what is the text or what is the data which you want to show in the front end to the user? You have to select that data in option label. And in the drop down below option label, you can see that the responses of both the inbuilt action which we have added. We have added the inbuilt action of get list and get contact. And while configuring these inbuilt action, we have received some response. So we can say responses of both of those inbuilt actions over here. So right now we are creating this field, this parameter for list ID. So from the responses of inbuilt action of get list, we have to select the name of the list because we want to show the name of the list to the users in the front end. So that's why we will be selecting list name as the response in option label. And in option value, what is the label or what is the data which is required to send on this API call? We have to select that. So we have referred to the API doc and it requires the list ID with the API endpoint. So we have selected the list ID over here. So what data you want to show in the front end, select it over here. And what is the value you want to send with the API call, you have to select it over here in option value. Then after that, it is asking us field type. So in the drop down below, we can see two active field type. One is select and second one is multi-select. So this is just a select field. A user can select only one list and one contact at a time. So that's why we have selected select field over here. Then is this field required? If it is yes, just select this mark. And then if you want, you can also add some kind of help text over here that what a user has to do with this data. And after entering all of these basic details, just click on save. And in this way, we have successfully configured a field over here of list ID. Now follow the same process of configuration for other fields as well. So we have created a field of email, just configure it. And here the label or the name of this field is email. We want the user to select the email address that to which contact we have to move to our particular list. So here we have created another dynamic drop down and from in the drop down responses below, this time we have selected the responses of inbuilt action of get contacts. From get contact responses, we have selected the response of email address of the user to be shown in the front end. So we have selected email address in option label. And with the API endpoint call, we also have to send the email address or the contact as well. So that's why in option value, we have once again selected the response of email address. So it is pretty clear, guys. You have to select what data is shown to in the front end, select that data in option label, and what is the response, what is the data which is required to send with the API call, just select that data in option value. This field is also a select type and it is also mandatory. So we have selected this and that we have entered the help text and clicked on save. So in this way, you can add multiple parameters and start configuring that parameter according to your API endpoint requirement or the action event you are creating. And at last, if you want, if this API endpoint requires some kind of raw JSON or raw JSON body over here, you can also request body over here. So this is a raw JSON body which is required to send with this API endpoint. That's why we have entered the body over here. If it is required, then enter it. If not, just ignore it. Just unselect it and ignore it for your application's this action event. And after entering or configuring all of these details, just click on save. So now guys, we have successfully created an action event for our application as well. Now let's check this action event in the front end. Once again, we'll go back to our workflow, scroll down and come to our action window. And here in choose app, search for send in blue clone private. Then in action event, from the drop down, select add existing contact to a list, click on connect. And here guys, we have to enter the API key of our Sendinblue account to make the connection. So we have selected authentication type as header based authentication. And in header based authentication, we have to send the API key of our Sendinblue account for each and every API call. So let me enter the API key of my Sendinblue account for the authentication. Okay, so here I have entered the API key of my Sendinblue account and let's click on save. So guys, we have made the connection. So as I told you that the API key which we are entering while integrating your application inside Pabbly Connect, it is temporary. At runtime guys, whatever API key the user will be entering of your application while using your application in Pabbly Connect workflow, it will get replaced with the API key entered by the user. And after making the connection, we have created two fields or two parameters over here in this action event. First one was of list ID and second one was of email. So we can see both of these fields. So in list ID in the dropdown below, we can see all the lists of contacts from our Sendinblue account can be seen over here. And in the dropdown below email, we can see a list of all the contacts from our Sendinblue account. So we have added two inbuilt action in the backend. We can't say it in the front end. And using those inbuilt action, we have received the complete data of list ID and shown all the list of contact in this dropdown below. And after that, we have done same for the contacts as well. Now guys, after creating this action event, let's test this action event once in the front end. So we have the list ID and from the drop down below list ID, I will select this list ID, for example, named as stack form. And from this contacts email, from the list of all the emails or all the contacts, I will select this user named as test user. So using this action event, I want that this contact with the email as testuser@gmail.com, this contact should be added in this list in my Sendinblue account. So let's click on save and send test request. And yes, here we have received some response and this response seems to be a positive response to us, which means this email address, this contact is added to this list in my Sendinblue account. So let's check it. Let's move to my Sendinblue account. Let's go to contact section. And from here, let's select that list. So stack form was the name of the list. Let's select it. And yes guys, you can see that test user, the same contact has been added to this list over here. And he has been added just now today itself. So in this way guys, we saw that we have tested that the action event which we have created while integrating Sendinblue, we have tested that action event is working perfectly fine. Now guys, in this way, you can keep on adding triggers and actions for your application and integrate your application inside Pabbly Connect. Now, if you are directly from the applications team, you can integrate your application inside Pabbly Connect and submit that application for approval. And once it gets approved by the Pabbly Connect team, your application will be publicly accessible on the Pabbly Connect platform. And if you are not from the applications team, but somehow you have integrated an application inside Pabbly Connect, you can privately share that application with other users as well by inviting them to use this application. Now to invite those persons, just go to the sharing section over here and invite your users to add or use your application which you have integrated. So this is it for today's video guys. I hope this video was helpful to you. Thank you. Have a great day.